Welcome to the LumiCast, your premier gateway to the universe of limitless photo editing. Dive into the galaxy of Luminar software and the dynamic world of AI photo editing. Join us weekly for a burst of creativity and the drive to transform your photos with confidence and skill. Broadcasting directly from Clever Photographer headquarters, it's time to welcome your hosts, Jakub and Holly Linton.
Hi, everyone. We're back for another episode of LumiCast, the podcast where we talk about photography, photo editing, and our love of Luminar Neo. I'm Holly Linton from Tennessee, and next to me is Jakub from Clever Photographer. How's it going today, Jakub?
Hello, Holly, and hello, everyone. I am over the moon to be back and talk more about photography and photo editing. Holly, what are we going to be talking about today?
Today, we're going to be talking about tips and suggestions for cruise ship photography. What to shoot while you're on a cruise ship versus really getting off the cruise ship. Isn't that a little bit of a different type of topic?
It's a perfect topic because the summer is coming in our part of the world anyway, and people are probably getting ready to get on board or maybe in a few months going on board, and I think this will be super helpful. Plus, we have a great advantage of two things. Holly just returned from a cruise, and I actually used to work on a cruise ship for a number of years. So you have the best two experts for this topic. Isn't it right?
That's true. And I will say, all right, I was on the Norwegian Prima, did a Caribbean cruise, and I don't really like cruises a whole lot, but you may find that your significant other loves cruises. So when you have to make those sacrifices and you are a photographer, I find that using photography is a way of kind of getting me excited to go on and, go on a cruise. I'll find ways of keeping myself busy taking pictures. So that it might apply to those of you who aren't that into cruising either, but you may have to go on one.
Yeah, definitely. Or you can be like me who absolutely love cruising. And in that case, photography is a great way of documenting the trip and the adventure and then being able to relive it again when you get back home. So either way, I think photography is must. It can be lots of fun. And absolutely, it can give you a purpose on what to do. Well, yes. I think we have to start with the very first thing, and that's the gear to pack. So, Holly, what should we get or what should we take with us?
Well, it's going to be obvious that you'd need to bring the lenses that are appropriate to your destination. Wide angle, I think, would be a very important lens just because you're going to see some scenery. But if you're going to a place where maybe you're doing excursions where you're going to see animals, or wildlife, you might need to pack a wildlife lens.
Absolutely.
So it's really just depends what you want to shoot, how much you want to bring with you. And obviously your cell phone is going to be an important phone to bring with you for certain. But it's really just, you need to know where you're going, what you're going to be seeing, and just make the common sense decision of which lenses you need to bring. And extra batteries, of course.
Absolutely. And I remember that last year we talked about traveling with your camera gear and traveling photography. And now thinking about it back, the cruise ship obviously have one massive advantage, and it's the fact that it's like a hotel that travels with you, right? So you go out maybe, or you go around the ship, and then the room is there with you. When you come back from outside or when you come back from the ship, it's there. You can charge your batteries. You can have your camera stored. So I think that is a massive advantage of cruising with your camera.
Yeah, you could bring one lens, wander around with one lens and like, I wished I have the other one with me, and just go back to your room and get it.
That's it. Exactly. So you don't have to be worried about, keeping it in a car or anything like that, or keeping it in a hotel. So, okay, great. So we talk about lenses. So standard zoom lens is a must, right? That would be the kind of essential thing to bring with you. Then Holly mentioned the wide angle lens, which can be great for like your interiors, because if you have a cruise before, you know that some of these corridors can be a bit narrow, the cabins too, and some of the spaces as well. So it's good to have a nice wide lens to be able to capture that. And as Holly mentioned, telephoto lens, if you're going to photograph maybe wildlife outside, or if you're going to be capturing, let's say, islands or landscape from the ship, it's good to have a little bit of zoom. But one most important thing, Holly, is the camera, right? Your phone camera. I mean, that's one thing that you can carry with you everywhere. Did you take some photos with your phone?
I definitely did, yeah. And I did bring my little selfie stick tripod, but I never did use that. I probably should have, but yeah, I used my phone a lot. So
Yeah, absolutely. I guess this is a good reminder of the old cliche that the best camera is the one you have in your hand. Not everybody goes to the dinner table on a cruise with a massive 300 millimeter, 400 millimeter lens.
Right. And as we get into some of the ideas of what to shoot, a phone is probably a better choice. So we'll get into that.
Good. All right. So we know what to pack. Ultimately, camera with a lens based on what you're going to be doing and where you're going to be traveling. Now, moving forward, before we look at some of the specific, we should talk about capturing the whole journey. Because as we agreed with Holly earlier, it's not just about photographing just your cabin or maybe just the destinations you're going to go out. You want to document the whole journey. So getting on board the plane and capturing the clouds, then maybe arriving to your hotel and the hotel where you're staying before going to the ship, then traveling to the port, then getting on board and then going into the cabin, capturing the cabin before you use it. And again, some of these details, maybe balcony views, and so on. So what we're trying to say here is to start the journey early and from the beginning, rather than just waiting until you get on board. Well, with that, I think it's time to actually move on to the actual shots or the topics that you can capture. And first one is first shots on board, what you should photograph there.
Yes. So after you get at your cabin, you're going to probably start exploring the ship. So the first thing that usually happens is they have the sail away party where everyone goes up to the deck and says bon voyage and waves their hands around.
Right.
I think that's your first order of business is to go up there, and there's some nice sights depending what port you're at. For example, if you're in New York, you get pictures of the New York skyline. So I think a lot of ports probably have a lot of great landscapes that you can shoot as you're sailing away from the dock. And I should also mention another thing when you do that is then explore the ship itself, maybe without your camera. Get a lay of the land, see what there is to shoot, get some ideas of, I think I'm going to come back and shoot that, this week. So that would be the first thing I would do is just get up there for the sail away and then start exploring the ship overall.
Working on a ship, I remember pretty much the first two things everybody shared when they got on board were either the view from the balcony, if you were staying in balcony cabin, or the detail of the bed if you didn't have a balcony. Those were always the first two pictures the people shared on their Instagram when they got on board. And then very much after, the next thing would be the sail away party, you're right, because you get to your cabin and you are like, this is so beautiful. And then, of course, you put on your shorts and shirt and you head up to the top deck where you admire the view and you maybe join the sail away party. And what we're trying to say is that rather than just partying around, bring your camera for this and capture it already from there, because A, there are stuff to photograph already on the deck and on board, and B, there are definitely stuff to photograph outside, like leaving the port or maybe skyline views like Holly mentioned, maybe even other ships or maybe the harbor details or people waving. Sometimes there are people waving for you to sail away. So it can be lots of fun, and you can join the partying with photography. Cool. So we have now settled. We have done the sail away, and it's time to start to wander around the ship, right? First day, second day, third day, seventh day, whatever. So what do you think that we should photograph there? What are some of the subjects that we could capture?
All right. Well, I have a pretty long list, and this is based on everything I have shot when I'm on a cruise. I looked through all my pictures and made sure I didn't miss anything.
Cool.
So here we go. All right. Chandeliers.
Oh, definitely.
Winding staircases, artwork or sculptures. There are a lot of different sculptures around, at least on the ship I was on, that have a lot of interesting detail to them. Textures on walls, because I'm always looking, even if it's wallpaper. In our room, there was a mural on the wall right behind the bed of a woman, almost like a mermaid type of looking woman, with a butterfly, like a giant butterfly behind her. So, of course, I was like, I have to take a picture of that.
Absolutely.
When the restaurants are empty, I like to wander around. There's a lot of empty parts of the ship. You'd be surprised.
That's
and
true.
I'm not a person who parties, so I find these places that are empty when everyone else is sunning themselves and out dancing and stuff. So a lot of the table settings are really beautiful to photograph those, and different glassware. I always shoot the cruise ship logo, which is usually under the smokestacks. And then there's, which I looked up, they're officially called funnels. So you'll have lots of smoke coming out. So I always like to get a picture of the smoke and the logo of the cruise ship, keeping in mind I might make a t-shirt for myself to wear on the next cruise with that
Sounds good.
Norwegian emblem. Okay, the pool and the party atmosphere. So make sure you don't miss that men's hot legs contest that they always have or could make for an interesting environmental picture. I like to go to the game room. And a lot of times, the ship that I was on recently, the game room was literally empty. I was the only person in there because I guess a lot of kids were not on the cruise.
Okay.
And in the game room, I like to unfocus my lens and get a lot of bokeh blur shots from all of the arcade lights.
Okay.
So I like that idea. All right. I still have a bunch more.
Go for it.
When near the pool, they have a big rack of folded pool towels with the cruise ship logo on them. So I take a picture of those. Now, when we talk about what camera and lens to bring, for food pictures, you wouldn't want to really wander through the buffet with your gear, but with your cell phone, take pictures of any ice sculptures or fruit displays. If your dinner is fancy looking, maybe your ice cream sundae looks really nice. Take a picture of all those food items. All right. Then the lifesaver or the life ring, which is hanging on the railings along the ship, always has the ship's name on it. So that's a fun nautical picture to take. Then we have the musicians and entertainers. If you're allowed to do photography in some of the shows, take pictures of the dancers, the singers, the cruise director. If you become friendly with the staff, you can photograph them in their environment. Like one of the cruises I was on, we made friends with the man who ran the Starbucks there. And at one of the ports, he had to bring a little Starbucks cart out to the island and make drinks and make Starbucks drinks out there. So I took a picture of him with his cart. If there's events like a disco, take fun shots of the colored lights. And again, more bokeh photography. I did that a few weeks back. It's a lot of fun. And take pictures inside the elevator. The elevators are usually all mirrored and have lights in them. So that's your chance to get a picture of yourself taking a picture.
Absolutely.
I always like doing that. And there's just 2 more left. The water slides. I've gotten pictures of people going through the water slide. There's always like a clear part where you can see them in the tube. So try to do like a little action shot like that. And then if there are onboard attractions like sports courts, race car driving was on the ship I was on, the high ropes courses, splash zones, and things like that. I would take pictures of all of that. So what do you think of that list?
Awesome. So I was just listening through it and I was kind of, in my mind was going pictures of things I obviously cruised on and worked on. And it was a really nice memory. So it was really, really nice. Chandeliers actually are one of my favorite parts of cruise ships because many of them have this kind of epic chandelier in the main atrium or the main room when you enter. And honestly, some of the chandeliers I saw were incredible. Especially, I've seen some chandeliers made by Swarovski, the crystals, and they were absolutely incredible. And staircases too, you can also see some stunning things. I like the fact that you mentioned the elevators because they are great for reflection, but some of them, how they are, again, in the atrium, it can be really cool to photograph them too. So yeah, you can do a lot with that. So you covered a lot. I think in overall, just to kind of catch up on the groups of things, what you already mentioned. So obviously interior and design is one thing, just like we say chandelier staircases. Then details and branding. You have talked about the ship logos and signs and smokestacks and deck railings and maybe the towels you talked about. Then food and drinks is a whole, you could make a food block almost from your cruise ship, right? Because I know that you don't drink, but even some of the virgin cocktails, they look stunning, right? The colors and the pineapple and the umbrellas and decorations, they are beautiful. And even like a glass of wine with the background of the port can be really, really nice. Then fun and atmosphere, you talk about the pool decks and parties and slides and entertainment and game room, amazing as well. And then people, you want to be just gentle with it. Obviously, it's not the point of you of hiding with your camera because you can right away see if the person is comfortable or not with you taking a picture. So I think if you use a common sense, you will be perfectly fine. And especially some of the staff from the ship, like a crew staff who's, like the musicians and dancers and entertainers, they are usually more than happy to take a photo. So obviously go for it. And the creative ideas, I love the idea with the bokeh in the games room. I think that was great. Mirrors, also great idea. So well done. I mean, that's a whole list of things. Maybe people can make a little list and take it with them on a ship, because honestly, you can be really creative with it. Anyway, after this offload of informations, we're going to take a little bit of a break. We're going to jump into our ad, and we're going to be with you soon. So don't go anywhere.
If you're listening to the LumiCast podcast, then we share something in common. We love editing photos, and we love Luminar. It's almost breathtaking what this amazing tech can do for you. On our website, you'll find countless different things to help you be more creative than you ever thought imaginable. From our photo manipulation masterclass to our power bundle with 986 elements, our essential preset bundle, editing software and extensions to our tutorials. Harness the power at the website at www.cleverphotographer.com/Luminar. Again, that's cleverphotographer.com/Luminar. Now, back to LumiCast.
And we are back to talk more about cruise photography. Now, we have not gone through everything. Don't worry, we still have a few tips on what you could photograph. Starting with a topic that can be really creative. Photographing sea, sky, and wildlife. So, Holly, you talk about things like sunrise, sunset, clouds. Tell me more about it. What can you photograph?
Well, there's always beautiful sunsets and sunrises and really cool clouds. So why not shoot those when you see them?
Absolutely.
There are sometimes rainbows if you're lucky. And the moon was out on our cruise, and I tried to get some nighttime shots of that. And there was a ship in the distance with the moon, so that was pretty cool. I'm not sure it turned out great, but I tried.
Yeah, absolutely.
Ship side, you might see some wildlife, depending where you are out there in the sea. So dolphins jumping around, whales maybe, or seagulls. And we had birds, I don't know what kind they were, but they were following the side of the ship. So I was trying to get pictures of those with my lens baby, which was pretty difficult. So manual focus on them, but I tried. And so, yeah, I think that those are some things. Just look out for any wildlife that might be ship side. You have anything that you would add to that?
Yeah, maybe like you already mentioned, other ships. So not necessarily just with the moon, but sometimes you will be passing other ships, and it can give you a really nice opportunity. You talk about dolphins and whales. I have seen both. I have seen beautiful whales in North Sea. They were absolutely incredible. Dolphins, you can see them pretty much everywhere if you're lucky. Generally, they join the ship either on a nice, beautiful day, but sometimes also right after you leave the port. So once you kind of get out of the port and you are in a short distance, they just kind of hang around there. So it can be pretty incredible watch if you're lucky enough to capture that. Seagulls, not necessarily as exotic, but yeah, for some people they are, because they represent the holidays and being by the sea. So absolutely something to photograph. And then since we already talking about photographing something from the ship and into the distance, obviously sometimes you see this kind of remote island or maybe a little coastline, which you can photograph from here. So good ideas, yes. Sunrise, sunset, I've seen some of the most incredible sunrise and sunsets on board. So yeah, definitely good. All right. Well, that's that. But how about some people? If you're traveling with them, what you should photograph there?
Yeah. I mean, a lot of times people are traveling in groups. You see families that all wear the same t-shirt, like family reunion. I feel like you should always get a picture if you're part of a group like that. Get a big group picture, take portraits of your family and friends with a clutter-free background. Try to get maybe the nice sunset behind them.
Yeah.
Or the sea behind them. And just don't forget to take some selfies also with your significant other and document your visit. So,
yeah, you're right. I mean, lots of time people coming to celebrate things. It could be anniversary or maybe like a wedding anniversary, or it could be people getting married actually, or it could be birthdays or family celebrations. So you definitely want to capture that. Another thing that come to my mind is every so often the cruise would have sort of formal evening, when people dress up in a beautiful, maybe long clothes and maybe men wearing suits. So this is a great opportunity to capture that. You can, for example, we talk about the staircase. That is usually a good location to capture beautiful photos, or maybe the atrium with the big chandelier, or maybe some of these hallways can be a great opportunity for capturing you maybe in a little more formal outfit if that's your thing. And again, as you mentioned, we already talked about the different interiors around the ship, everything from your bars, restaurants, cafes, playrooms. All of these can be used for pretty cool people photos, right? If you have a nice lens which can create bokeh behind, that can be really creative. So definitely good point. Talking about things we started with, that it should be sort of capturing the whole journey. Definitely the people photos should be part of it.
Mm-hmm. And can I add something to that?
Absolutely.
Since you or our listener, you're a photographer, you can save money and do these portraits yourself versus having the onboard portrait photographers taking your pictures and then having to buy those prints. So you have an advantage but if you could, splurge and have the professional photographer on board also do your family portrait too, of course. So that's up to you.
Good point. All right. So we have another thing that we should capture. And ultimately, now we're kind of moving outside of the interior of the ship. And we have to talk about capturing the ship itself when it's docked, and of course that we have to mention the ports as well, the actual ports of call. So yes, maybe sometimes the Caribbean islands are more sort of places where you go out and enjoy yourself. But if you are cruising maybe in Mediterranean or maybe in North Sea or Alaska or somewhere like there, then you definitely want to go out there with a camera and capture these places as well. So Holly, what's on your list there?
Okay, I have, when you get to port, usually there's a welcome sign, like welcome to the Bahamas or, a sign like that. Obviously, all the sites, if you're on certain tours, you're going to take pictures at each one. But like the flowers and plants that are native to the area that you're at, any animals like, monkeys and things, lemurs and things you don't normally see in your hometown. The buildings, and the architecture, the people, the different cultures. And I just think there's just so many opportunities, like a bunch of different genres at every port. There's street photography, flower photography, architecture, etc. So I'd also say try to get a picture of your ship from the port. If there's a nice vantage point, some are better than others. Like if you have to take a tender to your port, then your ship is still kind of out. It's out in the water. Of course, it's out in the water anyway, but it's farther away. Whereas if you're right at the dock, it's kind of harder to get a nice picture because there's a lot of clutter. But so if you're out and you could see your ship out in the sea, take a picture, maybe try to frame it with some palm trees around it or do something creative. But I think getting a picture of your ship is always a great idea.
Absolutely.
Yeah, that's about it. What else would you add to that?
No, I think that we have covered it all. I think one thing I would like to add is that sometimes if you go into a place you would really like to photograph, maybe a little bit of planning ahead is a good idea. So, let's say that you docking near Naples or maybe Marseille, and it's like a place there are some specific things you would like to photograph. Then maybe do a little research on how to get to these specific places, or see if there is a short excursion which will take you there so you can kind of just be pretty much transported there. Because I know that you have a full day, but sometimes the time is a little bit limited, when you have to be back on board. So, find out if you can get there by taxi or if it's a walking distance, if it's going to be open on the day when you're going to get there, if there is any entrance fee. Just do a little bit of preparation to avoid any disappointment if you're going to get there, So this is something that I've seen over and over again. We would dock in Naples and then people would want to go to Mount Vesuvius, for example, which when you look at the Google Maps, it looks like it's really close to each other, but actually it's several hours of traveling, or people just sometimes get confused with the distances. So if there is a place you really want to see and you want to capture with your camera, do a little bit of the research. And coming back again to our initial point, pack your camera gear for where you're going to be traveling and what you will want to capture. If you're going to go somewhere where there will be a wildlife, for example, bring the lens for it, right? I mean, I think that just makes your life much easier and you will avoid disappointment. So, Holly, my goodness, we have captured a lot. I mean, if I'm going to a cruise ship tomorrow, I have so much inspiration.
Yes. And one great way to end your photo story might be as you're I was going to say driving away. As you're going away from your last port, go to the back of the ship and take a picture or even a video of the trail of water. The leading lines, the trail of water at the back of the ship is always, I find, very peaceful to look at. So that might be a nice final picture in your little, album, so to speak.
Brilliant idea.
Yeah.
Brilliant idea. So just out of curiosity, how many pictures do you think you captured when you were on your last cruise ship?
Well, it was actually not a lot. It was about 350. About 350.
Mm-hmm.
I wasn't really as enthused as I had been on other cruises, or I don't want to say there wasn't as much to shoot, but other ships have had maybe more eye-catching things for me.
Okay. Oh, fair enough.
But I'm sure when I was in Alaska, I probably took over 1,000 pictures, maybe more.
Yeah,
I'd have to look, but specifically this last trip was, I'd say, a low amount.
A few hundred
maybe
is still
I have
good.
100, maybe 100 or so on my phone too, so I didn't count those in. So
cool.
But enough to document.
Because I went on a 3 weeks cruise from Southampton, which is the south of England, pretty much all the way down to Tenerife, so Spain and Morocco. And I think I captured about 4,000 or 5,000 pictures, but I went out every single port and I tried to capture as much as possible and then on board. So it's a combination of things. And you're right, it absolutely depends on what's on board and then also what you're going to photograph outside, right?
Yeah. And I got off the ship twice. It's ports I had already been to, so we didn't have any excursions planned. It was super hot, and I was like, I could bring my camera out there, or I could just bring my phone. And I ended up, I was glad I just brought my phone, because I documented a few things, and then, that was it. That was enough for me. So it depends.
All right.
Like we said, depends where you're going. So.
All right. Great. Well, Holly, thank you very much for sharing all this great knowledge, recent knowledge. That was great.
You're welcome.
And for you guys there, just remember that cruise photography isn't just about the destinations. It's about the journey. You want to come back home and you want to be able to relive it all over again with your friends, family, maybe in your book or in your digital frame. Either way, have a lot of fun with it. Use it more as a hobby and fun rather than a task, because it can be lots of fun. Folks, have a great week. Enjoy the cruising if you're going for one. And we are looking forward to speak to you again next week. Bye-bye.
Bon voyage, everyone.
Ahoy.
And that's a wrap. Now, there's only 3 things left to do. Subscribe to this podcast so you never miss a future episode. Visit our website at cleverphotographer.com/LumiCast to see what we have in store next. And stay creative and keep editing your photos no matter what anyone says.